My name is Noémie Rouleau. I am a live project manager on Rainbow Six Siege, and I am here today to talk to you about our live operation and how it's evolved and how it keeps evolving. So if you're sitting here instead of the other stage, I assume that you're familiar with our game. But just to give you a very, very quick overview, we're a competitive tactical shooter game. We have over 50 million players now to date. And we have also a very thriving esports scene that's core part of our ecosystem. So before I really dive in, I want to give you a bit of a backstory, a little bit so about our road so far on Rainbow. We've been live for 4 years. And the first year was really about learning how to do this. So reacting to what was going on and really more staying afloat as much as we could. And year 2 was really adjusting to this new normality that was our life. So this was our day-to-day now. So how did we adjust and how did we make sure that we were there to endure and that the team as well would be there for the long picture, for the big picture. And year 3 was really when everything stabilized. We're good. We knew how to do this by then. We knew how to operate. We were comfortable with our rhythm and how we would handle things. So it's really where we reached maturity. And that meant that now it was time to push it further. So that was the year, this year was the year of structural changes. So how could we make changes to push the envelope further? How could we improve things? How could we make things faster, better, and healthier for everyone? So 2 years ago, I talked here at MEGA+MIGS about how we had taken our AAA making team, and how we make that team into a game as a service operating team. We'd learned a lot during our first 2 years. Sorry. I'm going to grab coffee. Sorry. We learned a lot in our first 2 years. And back then, I talked about some of the main things we had to improve to ensure that we would endure in the long run. So, and a lot of what I will discuss today was actually planted back then. So back then, I talked about how we work to improve our quality of service to our players everywhere. Talked about how we were adapting to this new market as well because we had more and more competition. There were those new Battle Royale free-to-play and so on. And also how we had worked to increase the flexibility of our team so they could adapt to this new reality while maintaining a great quality of life for everyone. Today, I want to focus on 3 key moments in our last few years that really illustrate some of our best key practices for now and that are going to take us into the future. So about 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, 2 years, we decided to cut down in our patches in between seasons. So we're structured around very traditionally. So we have 4 seasons, so 4 big drops of content every 3 months. And in between, we have title updates to fix bugs, to sometimes add new content, etc. So a couple of years ago, we decided to cut down on those patches in between seasons to lighten the load a little bit on operation teams. But to achieve this, we really had to do a few things that would become cornerstones for where we're now. So if we were going to ship less patches, we had to gain the ability and the freedom to be able to activate and deactivate feature or pieces of content, whether they're monetization, gameplay, could be a refactor of your matchmaking system, for example. We had to do that, but without having to rely on a patch. So in order to get there, we had to teach our team to put switches in every new piece of code and every new feature they were developing. For us, switches are something we put in the code, and I'm not a technical person, so I can't go into too many details, but it's something we put in the code that means that we can activate or deactivate a feature server-side, so without a client update. It's basically a way to de-risk a feature, a rework, or an update, to de-risk it server-side so you can really react fast and kill it if there's anything bad that happens. And by the end of year 3, this really became like a normal part of our process, and now it's not even something we have to discuss. These switches are also very useful if someone wants to test something on the test server. So we have a test environment where everyone who owns Rainbow on PC has access. It's free for every players. And if you want to, for example, test something in the test server if you want to test something on the test server that you don't want to send live right away, so it's a really good thing. You can switch it on easily, and you can switch it off when the patch goes live. At the end of year 2, we had started to send our full season on the test server for 2 weeks before they would properly release, so we could de-risk our new operators, our new maps, our new game mode, for example, and everything that went in at the time. And in year 3, we decided to push it even further, and we decided to start updating our test server every week. So every single week, we push an update on the test server with whatever is in the branch at the time. This means that everything that will go live has a chance to be tested by a real player in a real environment for at least a week before it's sent in official patches. However, our goal was still back then to lighten the load on the operation teams. But if we were going to update the test server every week, that means more work. So we had to find a way to do it smartly and in a way that it wouldn't have too much load on the team. At the time, we didn't have much automation. So what we decided to do was to have a very strict and very organized process that we follow to this day. So we have a very well-oiled machine now to update the test server. It's basically everything that's in the branch by Monday at 2 or 3 p.m. Is cut off, and then it's going to be on the test server on the Wednesday. We do very small, concise patch notes that we send on social media for those updates. And then we just analyze the player reports that we get through our web tool. But even with switches and with the test server, it's still possible that something goes wrong. So you have to do hot fixes live. You have to fix some live stuff that in unplanned patches. In our first couple of years, when we had to do that, we would do emergency patch. And we realized that those emergency patch were very stressful and kind of heavy on the team. And now if we had less official patch, there was a good chance we would have to do more unofficial patch. So we had to find a way to make those less stressful on the team and easier to handle for everyone. We did a few things, but the first thing we did was change how we called it. So we went from emergency patches to hot fixes. And it seems almost silly of a change, but it really changed people's mindset and how they approach them almost instantly. Like by removing the emergency word, we removed the sense of panic that was coming with those patches. So that was really good. Then also we realized that maybe our process to make them wasn't super clear. So while we had one, it wasn't exposed to everyone. And when people are not aware of the next step, sometimes it can cause also stress. That's not necessary. So we put our process on paper and share it with everyone in full transparency. And it's still the same process we follow to this day. So everyone knows if there's an email that starts about a hotfix, they know exactly all the steps that will come and everything that's going to be in the email. So it's very kind of reassuring, and you don't have to think about it too much. And lastly, what we did is we have a really big company and we have a lot of approval processes, which is totally normal with the company size of Ubisoft. But some of their processes are really based on shipping traditional boxed game, and they didn't necessarily apply to us. So we wanted to cut some of that red tape we had internally. So what we did is we worked on a proposition and we proposed a plan to our HQ and our head of production. A plan where, while everyone would still keep visibility on what we were working on, when it was about hotfixes, we would approve and manage everything internally on the production floor. And that helped us cut 1 to 2 days of the whole cycle of hot fixes, which was a really big thing at the time. And like our strategy of shipping like differently worked, but it also brought one pretty big pitfall. We're shipping too big. So what I mean by that is that while the workload was okay on the team, we were shipping the same amount of content and of features, but our patches were too big. There were too many check-ins in each patch. And that made our patches and our seasons more unpredictable at launch. It was adding risk in our pipelines that we didn't want. So we're starting to think about how we could change that. And at the beginning of year 4, we announced that we would start to ship a title update every 2 weeks from now on. And we would also give more time on the test server for each season. So they would now get 3 weeks of testing and iteration. Our ultimate goal with this was to deliver value faster to the player. But no matter how good our intentions were and how noble our end goal was, it's the switch between telling people to ship, to focus on shipping in the season and shipping less to you, to now wanting to ship to remove big, especially big tech rework out of the season launch and shipping more often but smaller chunks was not completely worry-free. There were operational concerns, especially considering that at first we would do this without major changes to our tooling or our pipelines. And there were concerns also about how, as a team, we would adapt working in this new way. So what we set out to do, we put, with a few other leads, we put all our concerns on paper. We worked on contingency plans. We talked with various other leads, with top management, with studio as well, just to make sure that everybody, we had the concerns for everybody, so we would have like a good rollout plan moving forward. We spent about a month to a month and a half working on that, because we wanted to go from this to this. And during the following weeks, we spent some time as well exposing this new strategy to all our leads and then to the whole team. We did that about 2 to 3 months before we wanted to roll out our new plan, to really give time to people to bring up concerns, to bring up questions, and also just to generally get used to the idea of this new reality we're going to have. When we started to talk with our leads, we obviously wanted to highlight what good this would bring to the project. And one of the first things was that while, yes, it's more work, but it would also remove stress because it brought predictability. So it's always less stressful for a team to do something that they know they have to do instead of working only on emergency or on hot fixes all the time. And then if you reduce stress if you reduce people's stress, it also means that they have more brain energy to work on emergency when they actually happen. It would obviously augment our speed of fixing things as well, because we would have much smaller delta. So if you have 50 check-ins instead of 200, it means that you have way less possible culprits that you have to sift through when you have an emergency live. And obviously also, because we would ship more often, that meant that the players would get an update more often and would get maybe new content more often. And lastly, because PC patches are easy to revert, and they're also easy to patch because you don't have a submission flow that you have with first party, that meant that we were making ourselves space to take calculated risk. And that's really important if you want to improve, and if you want to innovate, and if you want to do new things, you have to make yourself some space to do that. But when we talked to the lead, it was equally important for me that we were really transparent about possible risks. And one of them was that at first, there was a good chance we would, I'm trying not to swear, that we would make mistakes, that maybe our first few patches in that new system would be a little bit less stable and we would have to patch them quickly. Or maybe we would send regression live, so bugs that we didn't see before. The main solution is obviously just to revert it because everything goes PC first, so we have time to see how it behaves before it goes on console. But the other thing we wanted to highlight as well was that it's okay if we stumble a little bit. Like, it's okay, that's how you learn. And I think Rainbow as a team has really proven that we're good at this. We're good at trying new things and learning as we go and getting better. Like, it's okay if you make a mistake, we're not gonna make it twice. But this regression and possible instability that we could have would also have an impact on our esports teams. Because before, the big patches, the big balancing patch, for example, would be timed with seasons break in the competition. Now they would come more spread out a little bit. So one of the things we did with that was that we fully integrated our internal esports team. So we have a team in the Rainbow team that works with esports and the Pro League. So we integrated them fully in the game operation daily life. So they're in our stand-ups every day and we talk with them all the time. So they're aware of what's coming on. They're aware of what's in the patches that are going to be released, but also so they can bring concerns to us from the pro players if they have any. And we also, because everything would go on the test server, we also started to encourage our pro players to go check them out before they went on the live server. So that's really good as well, because then they can send us feedback. If they have concern, they can flag them before it's on the live server. So on top, there is still potential concerns about the rhythm. So yes, it would remove stress. Yes, it would help us have better quality, but it might still be too much to operate to release something every 2 weeks and the test server every week, plus our normal seasons and emergencies. So when we talk to our leads, we really emphasized that we would keep a very close eye on people. That was super important as well, because you want to monitor how the changes are going. How are people sitting with this change? How are their energy level and everything? And if it didn't work out, we were allowed to go back. We were allowed to not change our mind, but to adapt and to adjust in a way that the team would continue to be flexible and happy and healthy. And that was very important to emphasize. We're doing something new for Ubisoft and something new for Rainbow. And we had that flexibility. And it was important that everyone on the team understood that it's okay if we have to adjust. It's not a failure. So on top of all the best practices we had with switches, with test server, etc., we also added a few new ones that were specific with this. And the first one was that every patch is optional. This means that if you have planned something to go on patch number 2 and you didn't get the feedback you wanted from the test server, or you just discovered a weird thing that you're not sure of, or the closing team is not happy with the quality, well, just back it out. It doesn't go in that patch. It can go in the next one or the one after that. And that's totally fine. That's also not a failure. But it also means that the patch themselves are optional. So if we're not happy with the quality of a build before it has to ship, we can just cancel that week. It's okay, that happens. And it's better to cancel than to send something that we're not confident in. Because we have a very strict schedule, shipping every 2 weeks. So we can't delay a patch, because if you delay it, it's domino effect, and then everything's kind of borked. So it's better to just cancel it. We have a very strict schedule, and we can't wait for anyone. And the last one was going to be a bit more difficult. It's visibility on changes, because we're a pretty big team on Rainbow. I can't remember exactly how many, but we're over 300. So that means that tracking everything that goes in a build can be a bit tricky. There's a lot of people, and with shorter integration, testing, and closing time of each build, we would get less time to run around the floor and ask people what they had checked in. We were really hoping that through education and spreading the words and really like making people understand why tracking their changes is very important, that we would improve. Eventually, we would get tooling as well to track change better. That arrived a little bit after we started to do this. But accountability and increased ownership of everyone with their own feature from conception to when they ship it was really, really key to all the changes we're making. But even with the best laid out plan, even if you take all the precautions and you do all the testing, crises still happen. If you're a live game, you're going to have sometimes crisis. It's just what happened. For our first 2 years, we were very, very reactive, like not as much proactive because we were learning. And while our escalation of issues, like it worked okay internally, but it was very much organic and it wasn't very well known for people outside of our core operation team. And there were sometimes like loss of precious time and because of branching discussions or priorities not being maybe well understood by everyone. So if we were increasing people's autonomy and accountability for their things, well, that meant we also had to increase visibility on our operation side to the rest of the floor. And the discussion around the proper way to manage escalation process and how we would make them better really came to the forefront early in 2019, this year, because in 2018 and the early 2019, we had quite a few crises we had to manage. But today, I want to focus on one of our biggest one we had to date. It happened last May, because I think it really showed how we've improved until then, and also like how we improved after that based on what we learned during that crisis. Around May 11th, actually, not around, on May 11th, a way to exploit a few of our operators and our gadgets surfaced on YouTube. Basically, people could make themselves invincible. So during that weekend, it gained unprecedented heights, and it was really, really heavily impacting the experience for all of our community. So on the following Monday, we started our escalation process, and within 3 working days, we had a communication ready and live explaining to the players what were our next steps. So here's what our process looks like. I'm not going to go into too many details, but there's a few key things I would like you to know. So swarming, for us, that's really key. So we assign people that will drop everything they were doing and will focus on this crisis, in this case, an exploit, until it's fixed. And also, don't assign just one person. Assign people from different métiers, profession. So you can attack it from many angles as well. So we established a crisis cell. So basically, that cell, it's a mix of live stakeholder and top management of the project. And that cell put the limits of what we can and we can't do. Because, for example, is it okay to switch off an operator, like to remove it from the game? Is it okay to remove gadgets or to remove a map, maybe? Because in some cases, it's going to be okay to do this, but we had other crises where shutting off what was wrong was not an option at all. So that's the role of the crisis cell. And the last one is everybody wants to fix it fast, and you want to deliver the fix as soon as possible to your community, and you want to get the crisis kind of over with. But don't cut corners. It's really important not to cut corners, because if you send something live that's going to break more things, it's not going to help you, and it's not going to help your community either. And during that crisis, we also highlighted a few things that we didn't necessarily do before, but that were going to be some of our best practices moving forward when we investigated crisis or critical life issues. The first one is to think about stopping the crisis, like stop the blood. Is there a workaround we can do? Is there a fail-safe we can put in place? Is there anything we can do to stop it from happening instead of fixing it to buy us some time? And the next one, it's kind of in the same vein as well. I'm going to let you applaud. The other one is in the same vein, but it's like our reflex when there's a crisis is to do what you know, and developers know how to dig to find a proper, clean, good fix. But when we're in a crisis, I'm happy with a plaster sometimes. Like just find a way that we can fix it, maybe for a short term, while we look into the more long-term, more sustainable solution. Like let's find a way to make the games as good as it can again. And the last thing, and that's something I've spent the last 3 years pretty much repeating to everyone all the time, but think about server-side first. Can you find a fix that's server-side? Because if we can, that means it's the fastest way to deliver a solution to the players, because you don't need a client update and you can do it really quickly in a couple hours on all platforms. So that's really the best. And we've repeated it so often now that I have pretty regularly people coming to my desk and starting their sentence with its server side. And it makes me very happy. 4 days after the beginning of our escalation process for this crisis, we managed to deploy our first solutions live. So we switched off basically 2 of our gadgets, and we removed one of our operators that was problematic. The following week, we deployed fail-safes that, while not fixing the issue, were preventing it from happening. It was our short-term solution because we'd realized while investigating that the proper good fix would need a big refactor, and that just couldn't be rushed. And in July, we finally deployed our full long-term fix on all platforms, and it still holds to this day. Once everything was fixed, our amazing ComDev team, we really have the best ComDev team, published a detailed, transparent postmortem on the R6 blog. The communication was really well received by our community, and that's great news for us because it's great precedent where we can be really transparent and have like great communication like that with our players. It is still on our blog. If you want to have a look, it details the incident, and it's very good. And in the few months since that exploit, thanks to better, clear internal processes and a much more aligned collective direction on how we attack crisis and critical issues. Like we've been more quickly reactive, and we've been more proactive as well in fixing these issues, sometimes without no one knowing it. And while this whole process was more or less how we worked before, like this episode really helped us standardize it and really cement it for the whole team. And now that's what we rely on. So everybody knows now when we have a crisis, and something is escalated, everybody knows what we're going to do, what are going to be the next step, who are going to be involved. We've improved a lot in many different things in the last 4 years, but for me, how we manage crisis, it's one of the things I'm really the proudest, and I think it showed how far we've come since we launched. But all this being said, here's the few key things we've learned all through those phases, if you want. First, identify risk and plan contingency plan, but also tell them to your team. If you can, it's really important. Implement processes. It helps minimize risk. It's help minimize stress as well. And like routine is pretty good for people, even if we don't like it. Prepare for crisis, just because they're gonna happen. And increase transparency both internally on your team, like so everyone is aware of what's going on, but also externally, like as much as you can with your community and your player base. It really helps have a solid relationship. That's it. Thank you. I think we have time for a question, but I don't have the time. The hour, I mean.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Thank you for the presentation. I have a question. Um, you mentioned that during the first 2 years there was a lot of learning and everything was like kind of hot. What do you consider were the critical changes in team organization and functions that allowed to go through this period and set your team for success in the following years? Yes.
It's a very good question. I'm going to try to summarize it because I did a whole 45 minutes on this a couple of years ago. I would say increased transparency, increased ownership is really important, even back then. And you might have to adapt your casting as well because not everyone wants to do live operations or a live game because it's very different from building a game from scratch. So for us, that was the main thing, like learning that it's okay if people want to go do something else, and it's okay if you have more turnaround also because it's normal that like it's not a production cycle that has an end date. So it's normal that you have people who will want to go work on another project maybe and come back.
Hi. I'm just curious how much change and adaptation or learning is triggered by other live ops teams in the organization, because there must be some other ones too. Maybe they're smaller, but how much of the change that you experience is driven by learnings that they have?
That's a good question because we've kind of been the first one at UB of that magnitude. But like I know we talk with For Honor very often as well. I talk with other projects as well. So I think we all how'd you say that? Co-influence? Co-influence each other a lot. Yeah. Like it's the good thing about being in such a big company. Like you can always find other people or other projects you can talk to and share and bounce idea of each other. Oops.
Do you have a live team for all the games, or do you have a specific live team for just Rainbow Six Siege?
We have a live team per each game. Yeah. So I'm on the Rainbow one, but we, like I said, we communicate with other live teams, but we have one per game.
Thank you for the presentation. Just one question regarding the big crisis you mentioned today. At any point, did you completely shut down the servers of Rainbow Six? Did you even think about doing so with such a big exploit? And you think, even with the exploit, did the servers continue to be online constantly on a very, very bad crisis? What do you think? Like is it okay to keep it online even though it's highly exploitable as is before you come out with a solution, or not?
Uh, sorry. No, we never thought about shutting it down. For us, it was it was okay to keep it going. We knew we would find solution fairly fast as well. So no, if I'm not mistaken, we've never taken the game offline in the last 4 years, but I wasn't there the first year.
Hi. Sometimes it may not necessarily be sometimes it may not necessarily be like an issue or a bug, but maybe an update comes out and players may react negatively to balance change, for example. Would this same sort of process apply? Would that be considered a crisis if the feedback is negative enough, or does the development team just keep going and work on it with the usual updates?
Just because the mic was cutting a little bit, so if you didn't hear, the question is, if we do balancing or changes to the game that are not well received, are we gonna how can I say that? Are we gonna approach them like it's a crisis or do something else, right? Okay. Actually, because we have the test server, this pretty much doesn't happen anymore because everything is on the test server before, so people know of changes before they go live. So usually if there's something we want to react to, or we get reports from the community and the game design team decide that, okay, you know what, we're going to continue working on that feature, then we're just not going to send it live. It's going to be on the TS, but it's not going to be on the live server. So that's usually how we deal with those now.
Hi, thank you for the talk. My question is, I was wondering, how do you as your team manage kind of who's on call and kind of distributing that load?
We have our tech operation team always have someone on call. So it's a rotation. But other than that, on the production team, we're not on call. Like because it's something for the long run, you can't have people on call for the next, I don't know, 5, 10, 20 years. So we just don't. We react to things when we come home, when we come to work, sorry, not when we go home. And we deal with things on working hours. So very proud of that.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. I really appreciate it. My question is, how do you balance community involvement with how open you are to your levels of engagement? Like, how do you, like you say you want your players very engaged, you want like as much openness as possible. How do you balance your relationship with them and their communication to you and that process of developing the game? Thank you.
So my com dev team would be probably better than me to give you a big question. But on my side, how we manage it, basically we have a really good tool that's called R6Fix, which is a web-based Jira, if you want. So that's where like all the reports from player and the feedback from the test server, for example, or for the live game, because we have 2 of them, well, that's where it goes. So then we can sift through and then we can update people as well when it's fixed. So that's really how we manage that on our side. And then, like I said, we have a really good com dev team that also take care of all the interaction on that side. On a temps encore du temps? Je peux me répondre. Une? OK.
Hi. So you talked about how you could cancel a patch if things go really wrong. I was wondering, how often does that happen, and does first party have problems with that? Because I I think you have to go through submission, right?
That's a good question. So it's usually not such a big deal, honestly, if we have to cancel. We usually try to do that if it's PC only, because it's just simpler, because you don't have submission in that case. But even than that, it's worked. Although I can't remember many, honestly, that we've canceled. Usually we're pretty good. We have canceled update mainly sometimes when we just don't have anything to send. For example, if everyone's working on bigger things, we're like, oh, well, that last patch we wanted to do, well, maybe we don't need it, so we're not going to do it for no reason. But one more? Or no? We have time for one more. Oh.
Hi. You mentioned, you changed the frequency between, from 1 week to a 2 week iteration and so on and so forth. Did you notice any quality in the feedback that you were getting from testers, or from when you push it on a test server, for instance?
I thought maybe we would see more of a difference. I think the team adapted really quickly to this new reality, and no, I didn't see much of a difference. Like it's really because we send the same amount of things, but just in smaller chunks. So like the feedback from our tester or from players on the test server and on our 6fix has pretty much remained the same. So that's really good. We're very happy. And I think that's it. So thank you very much, everyone. And I hope you have a good day.